When a company doesn't recognize the importance of a government relations team, it risks legislative, regulatory, and other government actions that could negatively affect the business, and, just as important, misses other opportunities that could benefit the business. So, what's the solution? Measuring and communicating the value of your government relations function so that you can be more effective at your job and affect governmental actions that benefit your organization. Hello, I'm Anna Platt with the Public Affairs Council, and in this video, I'll show you how to do just that. So, let's get started. First, it's crucial to measure the value your government relations function brings to your organization. But measuring the value of government relations is tricky due to three main reasons. Number one, government relations takes time. Seemingly small things take time. Things like getting a member of Congress to sponsor a bill or send a letter to an agency with an ask. And big things, like getting a bill passed or cultivating a congressional champion, take a lot of time. Additionally, many times in government relations, you are working to prevent or avoid something from happening. All of this means that the data showing success or failure just might not exist yet. Number two, measuring your direct effect is difficult. Goals achieved with other parties, such as coalitions or trade associations, are great, but it can be hard to determine exactly what your team contributed in a meaningful, clear way. Number three, measuring relationships is not just checking a box. Lots of strategies and actions, such as building a relationship with a lawmaker's office, are hard to evaluate and quantify. So knowing all that, what metrics should we measure? First, the metrics you use to measure the value of your government relations work should be a way to clearly track and demonstrate your progress, not as a way to argue that your government relations function should continue to exist. Second, speak their language. The metrics you choose should align with the metrics your audience cares about. You should know how your leadership likes to receive information and what language they speak. The language of business is different than the language of government relations. So how can you explain what you're doing in a way that makes sense to those who speak the language of business? The third thing to keep in mind with metrics is to consider quantitative versus qualitative measurements. Consider what those numbers or statistics actually represent and how is it meaningful. And make sure to do your homework first. See what your peers are measuring. Fourth, when thinking about your metrics, it's really important to differentiate between actions and impacts. For instance, if your CEO met with a member of Congress, that's an action. That's great, but it's meaningless unless it has impact, such as if the government position on the policy issue changed in a way that's favorable to your organization. That's the impact. Impact is what you want to actually emphasize. Impact is what your leadership is going to care about. Now that you have a strategy to measure the value of your government relations work, let's talk about communicating that value, both internally and externally. There are a few key pillars that are really important to communicating your function's value. First, explain the government relations function, what it does and why. Explain the role you play as a government relations professional, the work that you do, and why it's important. Do not assume that they know this. Second, speak their language. You should already have metrics that speak their language, but now you have to broaden their understanding. Explain what government relations does in terms the audience understands. Think about their perspective and how they see the world, or what your organization does and the role they play in it. Third, highlight how government relations is different, how it differs from other functions in the organization. What about your work is unique? And by unique, indispensable, because that's really the question you're trying to answer here. Fourth, use a past example. You can pick an example of a political or policy issue you helped advance, or conversely, one that you worked to block. What was the significance of it to your organization? Why did you decide to act? And what's the action being taken? And what's the impact or potential impact? All that being said, when you communicate these things, try to be as concise as possible. After all of this, it's important to remember what the ultimate goal is: engagement. The more non-government relations colleagues are engaged with and aware of your work, the more likely it is that your function's value will be appreciated. Remember, you may not want to get your colleagues engaged on every issue, but you want to strategically have a way for them to know what you're doing and why it's important to the organization. If you'd like to learn more about performing your government relations efforts more effectively, Visit pac.org/government relations to check out our related resources, including workshops, webinars, on-demand videos, and publications. And you can also check out our free report on measuring and communicating the value of public affairs. I hope the information shared in this video was helpful for you. Please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions, and have a great rest of your day.